The dog had been circling her son for 3 days. She thought he'd turned dangerous. She had it backwards from the very beginning. Imani Whitfield was not someone who panicked. She had worked in crisis intervention for 8 years. She handled behavioral emergencies for a living. She de-escalated rooms that were about to break apart. And she came home at the end of those days and walked her enormous Caucasian shepherd around a quiet neighborhood and felt the weight of the job lift slightly with each block. She understood stress responses in living systems. She understood, professionally, what it looked like when something reached its limit. She thought her dog had reached his limit. Zuberi was 3 years old, 86 kilograms of ancient livestock guardian, with a coat like storm clouds and a temperament that their vet described as pre-industrial. He had been bred for a world where wolves were real problems and property lines were enforced by presence. He was the most serious animal Imani had ever shared a life with, and she had loved him completely since the day she brought him home. Her son, Kwame, was 22 months old and had recently discovered that if you ran fast enough in circles, the world got funny. He would spin himself dizzy in the living room and fall down laughing, and Zuberi would watch from across the room with the mild professional interest of someone observing a phenomenon they have already categorized. Then, 3 days before everything changed, Zuberi stopped watching from across the room. He started following Kwame at a distance of about 2 feet. Not playing, Zuberi didn't play the way other dogs played. This was different. This was tracking. Every time Kwame sat down, Zuberi positioned himself adjacent. Every time Kwame stood up, Zuberi stood up. When Kwame went from the kitchen to the living room, Zuberi moved with him, not beside him, behind him, always in a position that Imani's professional instincts for what she couldn't say, and that uncertainty made it worse. On the second day, Zuberi began pressing his muzzle against the back of Kwame's head when the boy was seated. Not once, repeatedly across the day. Every hour or so, Kwame would turn around and push the dog's face away, and Zuberi would wait 30 seconds and lower his head to the back of Kwame's skull again. Slow, deliberate, cycling breath. Her partner Marcus watched this happen 3 times in one evening. He said the thing she had been thinking but hadn't said aloud. He's obsessing over him. Imani agreed. She called their vet. The following morning, the vet said what she had been afraid to hear confirmed. The behavior pattern she was describing sounded like developing fixation behavior in a large guarding breed. Given Zuberi's size and temperament profile, they agreed. Separation. While they assessed, Zuberi went to the utility room with his bed and his bowls. He did not accept this. He pressed himself against the door with full body weight and made a sound that traveled through the walls. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Kwame played without the shadow. He ran his circles. He knocked over his blocks. He ate lunch. He lay down for his afternoon nap. He didn't wake up from it, not in the way naps end. That gradual surfacing, the sounds from the crib, the signal to come in. Imani went to him at the usual time, and Kwame was awake, but he was not himself. He was lying still, with his eyes open, in a way that had no reference point in her experience of him. His arms were rigid along his sides. His jaw was set. He looked directly at the ceiling. She said his name. He did not turn his head. She lifted him. His body had a stiffness that she recognized from somewhere far back in her training, a posture associated not with sleep, but with neurological event. She called 911 while she was still in the doorway of his room. Kwame had experienced a focal seizure during his nap. A silent one, the kind that produces no convulsions, only a brief electrical storm in one region of the brain, while the body appears simply still. The pediatric neurologist, Dr. Siran Patel, explained that focal seizures in toddlers often present no observable symptoms beyond unresponsiveness and a specific postural rigidity that most caregivers wouldn't recognize without training. The seizure was traced to a small cluster of abnormal cells in Kwame's left temporal lobe, not dangerous in isolation, manageable, but requiring monitoring. What Dr. Patel told them about Zuberi required a different kind of attention. Dogs trained for seizure alert, and some never trained at all, detect the specific volatile organic compound signature that precedes neurological events. The chemical shift is measurable, 20 to 45 minutes before the seizure itself. It is consistent, and it is detectable at scent concentrations thousands of times below the human threshold. For 3 days, Zuberi had been following Kwame's head with his nose because Kwame's brain had been producing a chemical signature he recognized as pre-seizure alert. The pressing of the muzzle to the back of Kwame's skull, that specific behavior, is documented in trained seizure alert dogs as a proximity alert. He was trying to be close enough to intervene. He was trying to be in position. Has your dog ever done something that felt wrong until you realized it was the only right thing happening? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. Imani sat in the hospital corridor and thought about the utility room door pressed outward by 86 kilograms of a dog trying to get back to a child whose brain was about to go quiet. They brought Zuberi back into the main rooms. He went directly to Kwame's crib, stood beside it for a long moment with his muzzle at rail height, and then lay down on the floor adjacent to it. He didn't leave that position for 18 hours. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones we misread. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Kwame is 4 now. His condition is monitored. He has had no further events. Zuberi sleeps beside his bed every night, not because they trained him to, not because they asked him to, because he decided from the beginning that this was where he belonged. Some jobs certain dogs give themselves. What did your dog know about your child that you hadn't learned yet? The next story involves a Labrador who started whining every time the family turned on the kitchen stove and what was inside the gas line.